The world was split between two races, humans and demons, but since humans didn't have any resources the demons cared about, there was hardly any fighting between them. In fact, their relationship was so good that the demons would use their magic to help humans build houses. However, one year, the peace was shattered when humans discovered a type of immortal ore with a mysterious power deep within their territory. With this ore, they created magical treasures capable of casting all sorts of spells, and just like that, the humans' combat power skyrocketed. From that point on, a commander of the 4th Regiment orders everyone to activate their magical treasures, gearing up for battle. Following the order, the soldiers unleashed the power of their new artifacts, firing off energy blasts in every direction. Because of this, humans began to invade the demon race to steal their lands and resources. They burned, plundered, and pillaged everything, taking over 90% of the territory. And so, the demons were cornered into a tiny sliver of the map. But it seems the heavens wanted to balance the scales between the two races. It was at this moment that our MC was born. He arrives on the scene shouting for his comrades to fall back, because he's going to clear the path himself. Red energy begins to flow from his body, concentrating into his sword. With a serious expression, the boy prepares to unleash an overwhelming power against the enemies before him. And speaking of enemies, he's facing a gigantic army marching in his direction, ready for a fight. Without a moment's hesitation, our MC launches his attack, and a blade of energy slices across the battlefield at high speed. The energy blade surges forward and explodes right in the middle of the enemy army, causing massive destruction and wiping out tons of soldiers. Watching from a distance, the human commander and her subordinate are completely stunned by the MC's unbelievable power. They watch the explosion from afar as the shockwave gets closer and closer. It slowly grows, heading right for them. A moment later, everything is consumed by a gigantic explosion that kicks up a cloud of dust and debris. In the midst of the chaos, the commander desperately screams into a communicator, warning the base that the boy has gotten stronger and is heading for the capital. And with that power, the tide of war had turned. Now, the demons were advancing on human territory, driving them to despair. Thanks to his victories, our MC is welcomed back to his hometown as a true hero, with a massive crowd cheering and celebrating his return. Lin Potion, however, is totally lost, having no idea why he's getting such a warm reception. The crowd goes wild, calling him their savior and the invincible one, but our hero just wonders why they threw a welcome home ceremony. His young apprentice explains that he's now the emperor's favorite. This is Mukuo, a war orphan adopted by Lin and his only apprentice. He says that as soon as the nobles heard he was back, they came running to meet him. The crowd is so hyped that even our MC's parents are being congratulated for having such an amazing son. Lin Potion complains that nobody came looking for him when he was poor. The girl next to him says that the crowd was thinned out and only the nobles managed to get clothes. This is Dan Yunduo, our MC's fiancé. She advises him not to turn down the nobles too directly, even with all his war merits. Suddenly, the patriarch of the horse clan shows up shouting, offering 20 limited edition sports cars to Lord Lin. Right after, a member of the Bear clan offers him a position as a martial arts instructor with an annual salary of 3 billion, just to use his name. An elder dragon thinks the 3 billion offer is peanuts and says the dragon clan will gift Lord Lin 20 downtown mansions because he deserves it for saving the capital. Stunned by all the offers, Lin Potion politely tries to refuse, saying they don't need to bring anything and that sincerity is enough to make friends. Hearing the word sincerity, a bunch of demon girls immediately offer themselves as a gift to our hero. One of them, who looked a bit like a cow, is more direct and asks if their hearts are sincere enough. But the MC's fiancé covers his eyes and he shouts that he already has a girlfriend. Just then, a guard announces that the eldest princess has arrived, and the crowd rushes to make way for her. The royal approaches Lin Potion and tells him to dispense with the formalities, as he is a minister of great merit. She goes on to explain that her father, the emperor, heard of his return and sent her to invite him to the palace the next day for a grand celebration. Our MC, however, turns down the invitation, stating that it's not yet time to celebrate. As the supreme commander, if he indulges in pleasure, it could affect the morale of the entire army. Hearing his response, the princess blushes a little, as she had expected such a noble attitude from him. So, she agrees to inform the emperor, even though she was looking forward to his presence. In the crowd, some whisper that he rejected the princess because of his fiancée. At that moment, the 8-inch heel of a young woman's shoe suddenly snaps. Because of this, a woman with a horse-like face loses her balance and starts to fall backward, right in the middle of everyone. She screams as she completely loses her footing with nothing to grab onto. But before she hits the ground, our MC acts fast and catches her in his arms with a swift move. With her safe, he looks at her and asks with concern if she's okay. The horse lady, all flustered, replies that she's just fine. Seeing the scene, the bare face guy's jaw hits the floor, and he yells that so this is what Lord Lin is into. He quickly tells the horse clan patriarch about our hero's secret fetish, and the old man calls someone, saying their family is about to hit the big time. Hearing this, all the noble girls start putting on black stockings, hoping to get his attention. The elder dragon gets angry and tells everyone to stop changing and go find girls who already fit the profile so they don't waste any time. While the clans bicker, our MC complains to his apprentice about the fake news, and a newspaper shows that all the girls in the region with black stockings have been hired. Amidst the chaos, his parents, who are quite shy, say their goodbyes, mentioning they're going home to cook now that the crowd has left. Night falls over the city, and the celebrations for the demon's victory begin in full swing. In a tavern, folks are excitedly celebrating another win, shouting that Lord Lin is just too strong. Our MC enjoys the festival with his fiancée and his apprentice as they walk through the streets filled with food and stalls. Fireworks light up the sky of the demon capital in a huge celebration for the hard-won peace. His apprentice, Muku, cheerfully says goodbye, saying he's going to watch the lion dance and will meet them at home later. Right after, our hero says he's going to pick up his parents from outside the city, and his fiancée, Dan Yunduo, says she'll wait for everyone for dinner. Little Muku joins the crowd and watches in awe at the traditional lion dance performance. Nearby, the demon folk give thanks to the immortals in a temple, because thanks to them, their race no longer has to be mistreated. The city streets remain full of life, with everyone enjoying the festive and peaceful night. As he walks through the festival, our MC reflects on his journey and everything he's achieved so far. He thinks that he and the demon race have finally reached the top and are at the peak of their power. Because of that, he can't even imagine what the humans could do to turn the tables on them. Therefore, in the next battle, he's certain he'll invade the enemy capital. With that, his thoughts turn to his family. His parents, who once worked hard every day, no longer have to worry about making ends meet. He remembers his parents affectionately calling him by his nickname as they wave to him. Lin Potion recalls the day he left his old, humble home, leaving his parents behind. Back then, his parents told him they already had enough food and clothing and that he didn't need to go to war. He gets emotional hearing this from his parents, and his parents, also emotional, just asked him not to take risks and fight on the front lines. Back in the present, he holds some gifts he received from the people and feels happy with what he's accomplished. With a smile on his face, he walks contentedly toward his home, thinking his parents must have already arrived. Reaching the door, he pushes it open slowly, expecting to find his family on the other side. However, upon opening the door, he hears his name and is completely frozen by what he sees. Inside, he finds a terrible scene with his parents in danger, trapped by some strange magic. With almost no strength left, they tell him to run. Our MC is devastated to see his parents in that state. With her last bit of strength, his mother murmurs for him to run as fast as he can, but before he could do anything, his parents' bodies burst and a purple smoke bellows out of them. Our MC is completely paralyzed with shock at the sight, and this purple smoke begins to spread everywhere. A moment later, he realizes the explosion released a poison that was hidden inside their bodies, and with no time to react, a purple smoke begins to consume his body, corroding his skin and leaving him in agony. From a distance, a girl with a lollipop in her mouth laughs manically, celebrating that he fell right into her trap. She reveals that the poison was made from a mixture of 300 deadly ingredients, created especially to take him down. This is Xia Rui, humanity's #1 poison sealer, and she brags about having refined this mixture for 1028 days using her magical treasures. With that, she points to the house on top of the mountain and shouts that she prepared enough poison for him to drink a whole pot. From there, we see she's not alone, as an entire army of soldiers is kneeling, waiting for orders. They then raise a mirror that shows a man's face. This is Wang Feng, the demon sealing king, and he orders his ambushed troops to help Xia refinish off Lin Potion. At the command, all the soldiers get ready and aim their missile launchers upward, prepared to fire immortal or bullets. Immediately, the soldiers fire a volley of bullets in our MC's direction. Already weakened by the poison, Lin Potion is hit dead on by multiple projectiles that bombard him relentlessly. One of the shots hits his arm squarely and rips it clean off, leaving the boy gravely injured. The shots don't stop for a minute, and our MC was struggling to deal with them. A soldier observes the scene and comments that under normal conditions, he would never be harmed by weapons of this level, but the poison is destroying his body. Even so, another projectile approaches his face, but he doesn't give up and prepares to fight back. The soldiers shout that they need to seize this chance to take him out, and our MC readies himself to launch forward, and then he leaps into the sky, escaping the poison cloud and the rest of the shots. However, the human commander was already prepared for this and activates the next phase of the trap. Suddenly, beams of green light appear out of nowhere and trap our hero in a sort of cage in the air. This was the demonic sealing art, a set of celestial lanterns that formed a magical barrier to subdue demons. The soldiers prepare for the next step, as Shisha Rui had gathered almost all the rope-type magical treasures to ensure his capture, and thanks to that our MC was completely subdued. Following orders, the soldiers pull the ropes with all their might to immobilize the boy once and for all. However, Lin Potion was not willing to give up, and an explosion rocks the mountain. Witnessing the scene, the commander orders the troops to hurry and finish him off for good. Even with one arm missing, our MC concentrates his energy into his remaining hand and digs down with all his might. He then finally finds an exit, but looking through the opening, he sees that an ambush was prepared long ago and understands he can't go down no matter what. Down below, a magical treasure called the Chiankan cloth was activated, ready to seal him the moment he touched the ground. With a psychopathic smile, Xiao Rui orders the melee magical treasure regiment to attack together. Right after, one of the soldiers lunges forward and tries to pierce our hero's chest with a purple energy dagger. Surrounded by enemies who want him gone, Lin Potion finds himself in a completely hopeless situation, but he doesn't give up and joins his hands to use his demonic magic as a last resort. An intense golden light explodes from his body and takes the form of hundreds of firebirds. With the 100 birds flying far technique, he creates a vortex of energy that spreads across the entire battlefield. The energy birds hit the soldiers head on, sending them flying and catching everyone by surprise with the attack. One of the soldiers shouts that this is a high-level escape technique of the demon race, and that they can't let a single bird get away. The energy birds struggle with all their might against the magical net trapping them, desperately trying to find a way out. In the midst of the chaos, a single firebird manages to slip through the barrier, narrowly escaping the trap. Seeing this, two soldiers are shocked, and one of them questions how he can fly so fast even after being poisoned. His companion then deduces that Lin Potion's body is likely already adapting to the toxins. The firebird accelerates and finally breaks through the last barrier, completely freeing itself from the energy prison. The bird then begins to transform back into the MC, and he finally manages to escape to safety, far from the battle. With a look of relief and determination, he realizes his risky plan worked. However, his celebration is cut short when Xiao Rui appears in the sky above him, asking where he thinks he's going. Our MC turns in shock, realizing the enemy found him even after his ingenious escape. Far away, his apprentice Mewku panics and shouts for reinforcements, telling them to bring all elite troops within a 300-mile radius. He points to the mountain and warns everyone that his master, the great Lord Lin Potion, is under attack. Back at the confrontation, Xiao Rui smiles creepily and greets the boy with a good morning, good afternoon, and good night. But our MC showed no reaction, because our MC had already been defeated. Xiao Rui coldly asks if he has any last wishes. Even defeated, our MC murmurs that throughout his entire career in the army, he never took the life of a single unarmed human civilian. He continues, explaining that his family, his parents, and his relatives were all ordinary civilians of the demon race. Xiao Rui is surprised and laughs, saying she was just being polite by asking about his last wishes. However, the boy begs her to spare those who are still alive, but the villainess replies that this makes things a bit difficult for her. From there, she proudly reveals that the proposal to wipe out his entire family was originally her idea. Xiao Rui explains that his sudden appearance was more terrifying to humanity than both industrial revolutions combined. Therefore, she states that any genes related to him are a danger among dangers and must be eradicated. Because of this, she coldly declares that his entire family must be eliminated, leaving no survivors. At that moment, one of her subordinates calls her on the communicator with an urgent report. A female soldier informs her that the 43 members of Lin Potion's paternal grandparents' lineage have been captured. Right after, another commander reports that the 57 members of his maternal grandparents' family have also been fully contained. To complete the nightmare, a soldier announces that Lin Potion's Fianchi's family has also been caught, and the girl screams for him to run. With a cruel smile on her face, Xiao Rui gives the final order over the communicator: take them all out. Immediately, the soldiers advance and begin to attack the defenseless demon civilians, who scream in terror, and without a shred of mercy, they fire their energy weapons at the prisoners. And finally, they are all eliminated in cold blood. Cries of pain and despair echo across the mountain as fire consumes everything around in a scene of pure destruction. With the job done, Xiao Rui picks up her communicator and calmly tells the government troops to fall back, as their work there is finished. Lying on the ground, our MC feels his consciousness fading. Even for the demon race, it's impossible to survive for long after losing your head. With his last bit of strength, he apologizes to his emperor for not being able to complete his mission. He remembers that the demon race was just one step away from achieving peace for 100 generations, but he failed in his duty. Lin Potion also apologizes to his parents and his people, because even though he was incorruptible in life, he couldn't give them a good life and ended up leading them all to ruin. He remembers his Fanti Dor, who had pestered him since childhood, asking when he would propose to her. The memory of a stolen kiss in their youth comes to his mind, a simpler, happier time before all the war. He even recalls her father chasing him with a broom for seducing his daughter in a moment of pure innocence. But in the end, he laments that they couldn't even truly be together because their demise came first. He sees her lifeless body among the others, feeling the pain of loss consume his final moments. As ants begin to crawl over his face, one last idea comes to his mind before he passes on. He wonders if Shia Roy also has a family and remembers the legend of his race's reincarnation. At that moment, the villainess feels her water break, and one of her assistants realizes she's about to give birth right there. The MC, seeing this, promises that in his next life, he won't leave a single chromosome of Shia Rui's family behind. A moment later, our MC opens his eyes in a dark, mysterious place, surrounded by glowing coins floating around him. He finds himself inside some kind of bathtub, filled with these coins, completely confused and with no idea what's happening. Looking around, he realizes he's in a small paper boat, sailing down a dark river, and wonders what this place is. Suddenly, a bizarre creature with glowing eyes appears and reveals that this is the path to the afterlife. This entity introduces itself as King Yanluo and confirms Lin Potion's suspicions by telling him that he is already gone. Our MC is shocked to realize that King Yanluo actually exists, remembering how his people used to pray to him. Still processing everything, he asks what exactly it means to be on the path to the afterlife. King Yanluo explains that there are many things to prepare for reincarnation, and that his turn will come when the boat reaches the end of the River of Oblivion. When the boy asks how long that will take, the king replies that it will probably be another 500 years. Lin Potion is furious with the answer and shouts that he can't wait 500 years for his enemies, descendants, to live in peace, because he wants his revenge now. King Yanluo then says that since he was an incredible person in his past life, he will receive VIP treatment and have his Next Life Stat Edition program activated. Our MC has no idea what's going on and asks what the heck that program is. The entity explains that he can distribute points into attributes like intelligence, physique, wealth, and even luck with the ladies for his next life. To give him an idea, even the most amazing people who arrive there get 5 points at most, like some guy who only got 4 points for returning $1 billion. But King Yanluo reveals that for our MC, the story is completely different. With that, a gigantic list of his deeds appears, and he accumulates a total of 1,028 points that he can spend on intelligence, wealth, or time. Without a second thought, he screams that he wants time, and smashes the option with all his might. His boat shoots ahead of the others, and he yells that he can make up for the rest with talent and hard work. From there, he starts pouring all his points into time, as it's the only thing he really needs. With each point added, the water churns more and his boat gains incredible speed. With 68 points spent, he's already at the bow of the boat, feeling the insane acceleration. Because of this, his reincarnation time drastically drops to 471 years and 29 days. However, our MC keeps pressing relentlessly, determined to use every last point he has. He zooms past other souls at an absurd speed. With 281 points spent, his boat transforms into a paper airplane, and the waiting time drops to 312 years. He screams that he doesn't care if he's born with nothing, mediocre, or even with a disability. With a look of pure fury, he swears that even if all he has left are his teeth, he'll bite his enemy's neck. Meanwhile, back in the world of the living, Shari goes into labor, and her assistants panic, not knowing what to do. On the River of Oblivion, the paper airplane cuts through the water at an insane speed, rapidly approaching its destination. With 993 points spent, his reincarnation time is reduced to just 27 hours. Meanwhile, in the living world, Shia Rai shouts that it's too late and orders them to bring a medical bed, because the baby is coming right there. With a fixed and determined gaze, our MC focuses on his final goal, which is getting closer and closer. From there, his paper airplane, which now looks like a rocket, finally reaches the end of the River of Oblivion. A moment later, a sliver of light tears through the darkness, indicating that the passage to the next life has opened. He feels his body being pulled toward the light as a farewell message appears, and the boy understands he's reaching the other shore of life. Determined, he braces himself for what's to come in his new journey, and little by little, a light shines before him. Faced with the blinding light, his consciousness dissolves, and he is completely consumed by the portal of reincarnation. Back at the birth, the assistants shout in relief that the baby's head is out. One of the men holds the newborn and congratulates everyone, because he's a healthy boy who has already opened his eyes. The baby looks around completely confused and wonders if this is really his next life. As he's passed into his mother's arms, he questions whether he reincarnated as a human or a demon. But upon seeing his new mother's face, his eyes widen in pure shock and disbelief. It turns out his new mother is none other than Xia Rui, his killer from his past life, who is now looking at him happily, saying that he's looking at her. Completely unhinged, Xia Rui holds her new son and shouts that he's so cute she wants to eat him up, leaving our MC panicking at the bizarre situation. Suddenly, King Yanluo appears in the boy's mind and greets him, saying it's been a long time. Our MC is confused to see the entity, and the king confirms that his reincarnation has been successfully completed. From there, he announces that as part of the process, he will now erase all the memories of his past life. Meanwhile, in the real world, Shiroi celebrates having a son, and our hero becomes desperate at the idea of losing his memories. King Yanlu explains that his new mother can't see him and would be a little spooked by his presence there. With that, he extends his glowing hand and touches it to the newborn's forehead to begin the erasure process. Golden energy begins to flow into the baby, and Shiarui, despite not understanding, feels that something strange is happening. A moment later, a blinding explosion of light occurs, and the assistants are thrown back, not knowing what happened. The king begins to extract something from the boy's mind, forcefully pulling out his most precious memories. Because of this, we see memory bubbles with the faces of his loved ones and moments from his past life being ripped from his consciousness. Our MC realizes in horror that his memories and his power are being extracted, while the image of his laughing enemy echoes in his mind. Desperate, he refuses to accept this fate and fights against the extraction with all his might. With a superhuman effort, the baby manages to grab King Yanlu's hand and stops the erasure process, leaving the entity completely motionless. The king warns him not to waste his effort, as erasing traces of a past life is standard procedure, and a mere mortal could never resist a god. Annoyed by the baby's stubbornness, King Yanluo glares at him and orders him to let go immediately. However, our MC doesn't yield, and the divine entity complains that he just wants to finish his shift and go home in peace. The scene then takes us 2.5 years into the past, to one of the largest population centers in the demon race's territory. There, a man with golden hair and eyes lets out a deafening roar that echoes throughout the region. This is Yan Chong, the Heaven Collapser, one of the 12 stars of natural disaster and humanity's strongest warrior, who has invaded the area. With his overwhelming power, he levitates dozens of gigantic boulders around him, preparing for a devastating attack. Using a gravity-based magical treasure, he gathers all the rocks into a single point in the sky above the demon city. A moment later, that cluster of rocks begins to fall, and this is the Great Desolation Starfall technique, a flaming meteor descending from the heavens to annihilate the demon race. Fortunately, our MC Lin Potion was on guard duty and calmly creates a small green flame, calling it a little flying dragon. From there, he summons the demon core, and the small flame transforms into a gigantic green energy dragon, the Celestial Dragon Guard. This heroic feat made the newspapers, and everyone wanted to know who the mysterious hero was. After that, both sides of the war began sending their elites to strategic points. With that, Lin Potion and the 12 stars of natural disaster became destined opponents on the battlefield. Like Leng Qiankyu, the great tsunami, she then attacks the demons with a gigantic wave that threatens to engulf an entire village, and the demons run desperately to save their lives. And once again, our MC was there to protect the innocent, using his powers to contain the fury of the water. With his hand, he creates a blue energy barrier to shield the defenseless demons from the giant wave. It was said that the 13 stars of natural disaster possessed magical treasures that naturally countered the demon race, which is why not even Lin Potion could completely defeat them. Therefore, the most he could do was seal Leng Qiankyu, the great tsunami, in a gigantic block of ice in November of the year 3760. After her, our MC faced Master Zhen Shihang, known as the Great Earthquake, and in April of the same year, our hero managed to seal him with magical chains to stop his devastating powers. A month later, it was Tian Teizui, the active volcano, who was sealed inside a volcano in May of 3760. Next on the list was Yahello, the man-eating swamp, who was sealed in August of 3771. Then, the pestilent plague ancestor was also contained in a prison of light in December of 3771. Soon after, the rolling thunder and the great earthfire were the next to be sealed by our MC's power. However, a few minutes ago, Lin Potion was taken out, and with that, his magic began to fade from the world. The demonic magic that once imprisoned so many disasters lost its master and dissipated into the world as a column of light. Because of this, the ice prison that held the great tsunami began to slowly crack. From there, the ice shatters completely, and a figure escapes at high speed from its ancient prison. At the same time, in another part of the world, the chains holding another entity also begin to break. In this way, the man-eating swamp also breaks free from its seal and returns to spread chaos across the world. With a roar of fury, the great earthquake also shatters his chains and completely frees himself, and with that, the 12 stars of natural disaster finally managed to escape their prisons, spreading chaos and destruction across the entire planet. Back to the struggle with King Yanluo, our MC mentally thinks that the stars of disaster got lucky, but the entity doesn't give up and tries once more to collect the boy's memories and power with all its might. This attempt causes an explosion of red energy that surprises the king. Completely shocked, King Yanluo wonders how this is possible. It turns out our MC is holding the entity's hand with absurd strength, preventing the extraction. And not only that, he starts pulling the beam of energy out of his own head, reversing the process. Faced with this resistance, the king remembers something important he had almost forgotten. He recalls that our hero still has almost half of his power, as this was the energy used to keep the 12 stars of natural disaster sealed. So, the king shouts for Lin Potion to stop being arrogant and look at his current situation. He continues, saying that a baby's body cannot withstand intense consumption of demonic magic. Because of this, even before he can pull out the energy needle, he will consume himself, and his memories will be taken to the realm of the gods for research. Hearing that his memories would be used as a test subject, our MC becomes completely furious. Ignoring the baby's fury, King Yahello declares that his past life is over, and that he must accept his fate. But our MC refuses to yield and unleashes all his remaining power in an explosion of colorful energy. The explosion is so intense that King Yahello's energy beam is completely destroyed in the process. And from the light, our hero shouts that he, Lin Potion, will never accept a fate imposed by anyone. From there, he confronts King Yahello, saying that according to legends, he is the god of reincarnation and has absolute control over the underworld. However, these same legends state that the gods have a clear division of labor among themselves. Because of this, our MC shouts that the king has no influence over the affairs of the living realm. Therefore, he announces that he will take his demon cores, which hold all his magic, and scatter them across the world. He explains that when he grows up, the memories in his heart will guide him to recover these powers one by one. Furthermore, the boy doesn't believe in such cruel coincidences and swears vengeance for his fiancée and his family. With a furious look, he warns King Yahello that one day he will settle the score with him as well. With that said, our MC finally rips the energy needle from his forehead and disperses his power in colorful beams. Witnessing the scene, King Yahello is completely shocked, watching the energy spread across the world. One of the purple power beams flies toward a quarreling couple, who are surprised by it. At the same time, a boy on a horse sees a fiery comet pass by and shouts for his older brother. The comet was actually part of Lin Potion's power, and a demon official captures it, celebrating that he will now be the most powerful of all. That night, Lin Potion's demon cores streaked across the sky like meteors, and the demon race civilians stopped everything they were doing to watch. They looked up at the colorful lights that once surrounded their great hero, flying in all directions, and after a few seconds, the demon folk stared at the sky, completely stunned by what was happening. Slowly, they realized they weren't dreaming and began to face the unacceptable reality unfolding before their eyes. Amidst the crowd, little Muku breaks down in despair and shouts his master's name with tears in his eyes. From that point on, the world witnesses the fall of its hero as his powers spread like pillars of light across the entire planet. From afar, King Yahello watches the scene surprised, and congratulates the boy on his incredible feat. Lying on the ground, our MC is silent, completely drained of the strength to react. Due to the effort, his consciousness begins to weaken, and his memories of his past life become increasingly hazy. His eyes slowly close as he loses the battle against extreme exhaustion. Meanwhile, his new mother, Shiarui, struggles to her feet, ignoring the medics around her. Even covered in blood and exhausted from childbirth, she begins to drag herself across the floor with terrifying determination. She moves slowly toward her son, reaching out her hand as if to grab him, and in tears she picks up our MC. As his memories fade, our MC can no longer recognize the woman's face, but he knows it doesn't matter. When he grows up, he will recover his power and his memories piece by piece. Shiarui then hugs him, and our MC thinks that on the day he regains his memory, she will be gone. Meanwhile, the surviving soldiers are completely confused, not understanding what happened. One of them wonders when reinforcements will arrive, but they all agree that surviving is the priority. But suddenly, little Mukuo appears in the midst of the chaos and, with tears in his eyes, he shouts for the woman to give back his master's life. With his demonic magic, he attacks the surrounding soldiers, and one of them desperately yells for Lady Shiarui to get out of there as fast as she can. From there, the boy unleashes his 100-toed whip punishment technique, and dozens of spiked whips emerge to attack all the soldiers. With his overwhelming power, the little apprentice finishes off all the government troops that hadn't managed to retreat yet. Seeing his apprentice there, our MC is completely surprised and shouts his name in his mind. After dealing with the soldiers, little Muko charges with all his might toward his true target. Our MC panics, knowing that his merit points are gone, and that his apprentice won't be able to reincarnate again if he perishes there. Despite knowing the risk, the little apprentice continues to charge forward with a roar of fury, determined to avenge his master. The energy whip strikes our MC dead on, and he thinks that his apprentice is such a little brat. Muku attacks our MC with everything he has, and his face was filled with an expression of pure hatred. At that moment, he remembers a lesson from his master, who told him never to attack the elderly, babies, pregnant women, or the disabled because they can't fight back. His master advised him never to become like the humans, and he always agreed with a smile on his face. But now, trapped in his own power, the little apprentice screams in despair, feeling hatred consume his body, and he attacks with all his might, ignoring his principles. Our MC was injured by the attacks, but his mother activates an Earth Escape talisman to get away from there. With that, the energy whips strike the location, but the little apprentice's attack completely misses. The boy stands there stunned, realizing that his enemy managed to escape. With the villainess gone, he finds himself completely alone in the midst of that scene of destruction. As he weeps for the loss of his family, the news of the attack on Lin Potion spreads across the continent like wildfire. Because of this, the demon race hurries to sue for peace with the humans, even proposing war reparations and territorial concessions. As expected, humanity doesn't agree to the terms and launches a large-scale counterattack against the demon race. Fortunately, our MC, who couldn't stop worrying about his race, had already prepared a response for this situation. It turns out Lin Potion had injected a massive amount of his demon core into his Celestial Dragon Guard technique, and with its power at maximum, the energy dragon crashes into a mountain range, creating a natural barrier to protect its people. The dragon's green energy approaches the largest city of the demon race, a place full of life and lights. As the dragon nears, the entire city begins to shake violently, terrifying all its inhabitants. A moment later, the gigantic head of the Celestial Dragon Guard emerges from the water surrounding the capital. Because of this, the inhabitants panic and run desperately, not understanding what is happening. The ground around the city splits open, and a gigantic chasm forms, separating the capital from the rest of the continent. From there, the dragon begins to lift the entire landmass where the city was built, carrying it into the skies. And so, the Celestial Dragon Guard flies through the heavens, carrying the entire city on its back like a flying fortress. The colossal creature continues its journey through the night sky with unwavering determination. And it wasn't just one city. The dragon was carrying the largest metropolises of the demon race. It continues on its path through the starry sky, on a mission left by its master. Even wild animals watch the scene, impressed by the creature's size. They stand there as the giant dragon passes over them like a flying mountain. The Celestial Dragon Guard reveals itself in all its glory, a majestic and terrifying sight at the same time. Following Lin Potion's last wish, the Celestial Dragon carried the 4 cities with the largest demon populations and floated over the central continent. In this way, the demon race managed to get a chance to breathe, but the 3-year counterattack led by our MC ended in failure. Meanwhile, our MC is now just a helpless baby who can only cry, and with his fall, a new chapter in the history of war between humans and demons was about to begin. From there, time moves forward, and we see our little MC being cared for like a normal baby. His new mother, Xia Rui, watches him with a goofy smile on her face and says she could spend all day just looking at him, while a scientist calls her for an experiment. Suddenly, the boy holds her finger, and the villainess gets all excited by the interaction, wondering if it's not the most normal thing in the world. With a smile on her face, she remembers that back then, she only had one thought in her mind, and that thought was that she would protect him for his entire life, even if it meant performing bizarre experiments on other people. The scene then takes us to the Xia Royal Palace on a cold winter night. There, we see Xia Ru walking alone through the snow toward the palace. She hugs herself for warmth and wonders why it suddenly started snowing. The girl complains that the guards and nannies went home for the new year, and that usually someone picks her up at this time. But suddenly, a small child appears in the snow and excitedly shouts for his mother. The woman turns, surprised to hear the voice, and recognizes little Tian running toward her. However, instead of being happy, she scolds him angrily, asking who let him out in this cold, and reminding him she told him to watch the stove at home. Faced with the scolding, the boy remains silent and just looks at his mother with a sad expression. With a shy smile, the boy shows that he brought her a warm drink. He holds the container carefully so as not to spill anything, and with an innocent look, he offers the sugar water to his mother. She is surprised and asks if the fire at home is okay. The boy apologizes and says he thought she would be happy to see him. Meanwhile, a man comments that the little one ran home 3 times to heat up the drink, just so she could have a warm sip. The footprints in the snow show the path he took back and forth several times. With a goofy smile, Shiroi says he left her speechless. She then asks why he didn't wait at home instead of coming to the village entrance, and he replies that it's different. Her heart warmed by her son's gesture, she holds the container with a genuine smile. Walking through the snow, she drinks it all and says it was sweet and warm. Meanwhile, the boy asks about the head she threw away, and she replies that she hates demons. And so, the years pass, and we see the boy growing up beside his mother, admiring her in her lab. In another moment, they eat together, and our MC says that eating with his mom is the best thing in the world. He even declares whispers that he likes her so much he wants to marry her when he grows up, and the villainess replies that they can consummate the marriage that very night. As they laugh, one of the maids calls them crazy, showing that the relationship between mother and son is strange, to say the least. They also had normal moments, like going to an amusement park. Our MC and his new mom have a great time on the Ferris wheel, but their fun was powered by the suffering of an enslaved demon who was forced to turn the Ferris wheel, and he wasn't the only one, as another demon was forced to spit water for a water ride. Meanwhile, the two enjoyed their outing without a care for the poor guy's situation. After that, they go to the haunted house, and the villainess says that the monsters in there are real. A guide explains that the enslaved demons, which cost a fortune, are just acting as if they're being punished for their sins. She even lies, saying that the demon race doesn't feel pain, and that it's all just an act. After the horror show, they continue to have fun as if nothing happened. The two slide down a giant slide together, and after a full day they take a nap on the grass, completely exhausted. In another moment, the mother pushes her son on the swing, but he ends up falling to the ground. But at the end of the day, she picks him up in her arms with a loving smile, showing her affection. At night, the two watch TV together at home, until a breaking news report catches their attention, and an anchor informs them that Lidazi, a powerful demon official, has launched a sudden coup. She continues, explaining that because of this, the emperor of the demon race and his family have become prisoners. With that, a political expert comments that after Lidazi takes power, he might launch a purge against the pro-war faction that supported Lin Potion. The other anchor laments the situation, saying it's sad to see the greatest power of a demon race minister come to this, and says that it reminds him of the massacre of Lin Potion's family years ago, and the other adds that the entire family was taken out. One of them says that even humans found that excessive, but the other scolds him, telling him not to say that while laughing. Later that night, the moon shines in the sky as Xiaorui sleeps peacefully in her bed. Our MC, however, can't sleep because of what was said on the news. The next day during dinner, a dish with a strange appearance is served on the table. His mother asks what's wrong and reminds him that 5-colored flower demon meat is his favorite dish. With a proud smile, she reveals that she bought the Fire Tongue Civet clan, who are the best cooks, to be her kitchen slaves, and encourages him to try the new recipe. Hearing this revelation, our MC is completely paralyzed, unable to react. With a trembling voice, he says he doesn't have much of an appetite and has been feeling very strange recently. He continues, explaining that he feels there's something he definitely needs to do but can't remember what it is. The boy reveals that he always dreams he's surrounded by the bodies of his clan members, his parents, and his wife. Completely shocked and excited by the revelation, the villainess asks in surprise if he also has a wife. The villainess, all excited, asks if he likes his wife more or her, and the boy replies that it's not like that, as the feeling is different from liking his mother. He continues, explaining that it feels like he's willing to give everything for her. From there, a memory of his past life surfaces in his mind, and he sees himself being hugged by his fiancée. Back then, his friends would tease him, saying he was all red-faced about the situation. With a smile on her face, the girl says that he likes her, and the others comment that little Tian is very lucky because Yunduo is the prettiest among them. But the happy memory is interrupted by a terrible vision of his fiancée trapped by green magic, murmuring his name with her last breath. Faced with the terrifying memory, our MC is completely paralyzed with shock, and the vision becomes even more bizarre when his beloved's body appears floating over the dinner table, begging for help. At the terrifying sight, our MC lets out a scream of terror, and his mother wakes him up, worriedly asking why he's hot as a furnace. Desperate, the villainess shouts for him not to scare her, as she only knows how to eliminate people, not how to save them. But in the darkness, a mysterious voice says with a smile that the time to awaken has finally come. This voice belongs to an entity that introduces itself as the remnant power of the demon core our MC used to stay alive back then. We then see a flashback to the moment the baby dispersed his powers across the world. The entity continues, explaining that because it received preferential treatment, it's different from the other unrefined demon cores. Therefore, she reveals herself as the greatest foundation for him to become #1 under the heavens, as she is the first demon core of his past life, the worldview brain. She laments the situation of her poor master, whose entire family was wiped out, but with a psychopathic smile, she says good riddance. From there, she has a breakdown and screams that she hates being born as a demon core, because she can't eat flower demon meat or watch cartoons and can only daydream about the man she likes every day. Furious, she holds a photo and shouts that it's not fair that everyone can be physically with brother Tian except her, and that they all deserve to go. With a look of pure hatred, she shatters the photo and says she especially hates Dan Yunduo, our MC's fiancé. The entity continues her rant, saying that just the thought of having to watch the two of them together after their wedding from inside his brain makes her want to explode. And in the middle of her delirium, she starts hallucinating and screams for her stupid brain to stop thinking about these things. With a look of pure madness, she declares that the heavens have eyes, and now everyone is gone, and in this life, Brother Tian belongs only to her. After her fit of rage, she falls silent for a moment. However, with a malicious smile, she says that for that to happen, his human body in this life needs to be able to satisfy her. With that, she approaches the boy's sleeping body and says she liked him because he was strong, and with a sadistic look, she warns that if he continues to be weak as he is now, she will keep corroding his body with demonic power until he perishes. From there, she reveals her evil plan to simply switch to a new host once he's no longer useful. She continues, saying she'll let a stronger man play with her, or maybe test how far his cruel new mother is willing to go for him. As we watch the villainess argue with doctors about the boy's condition. A month later, in the Black Swamp Corner, a dark place full of secrets, there we see a man selling demon cores and even demon race children in a buy one, get one free promotion. The black market is in full swing, with people selling demon organs and bones as if they were common goods. Amidst this bizarre scenery, we find Chun's medical clinic, a place that promises miraculous cures. Inside the clinic, the masked doctor examines our MC and, with glowing red eyes, says he's seen these symptoms before. With a serious look, the doctor reveals his theory: in his past life, the boy was of the demon race. Our MC is surprised by the revelation and wonders if past lives really exist. His mother then explains that she heard about it from the oldest demon sealers of her master's generation. She continues, saying that in the 10,000-year history of the central continent, there have indeed been some humans who claim to be reincarnated, and that they even carried a part of their past life's memories. The villainess admits that at the time, everyone thought her master was bragging, but in recent months, she and the boy have been seeking doctors everywhere with no results. Because of this, she remembered the past events and felt that the symptoms were very similar to what her master had described. So, she thought of going to her master's hometown, the Black Swamp Corner, to find a witch doctor like him to try for a cure. After hearing the story, the doctor confirms that ancient texts did indeed write about this disease. He explains that the residual power of a past life from the demon race has a strong rejection reaction to the human body of the current life. Therefore, it's not strange that he has this kind of fever symptom all over his body. Desperate, the mother asks what should be done about her son's illness. The doctor then delivers the devastating news: from a medical standpoint, there is no way to save him, and the child will pass on within a year. The woman panics and asks if there's absolutely no way to cure him, but the doctor reveals that there is a method outside of medicine, though it's a bit difficult to execute. He explains that the essence of the boy's illness is the residual will of his past life as a demon, and in the middle of the explanation, one of the trapped demons calls him Lord Len. The doctor then reveals the cure: if he constantly eats demon cores to gradually undergo demonification, his past life's resistance against this body will naturally decrease, and the root of the illness will be removed. And that, as she knows, the demon core is the source of all spirit and power of the demon race. The doctor continues, explaining that in ancient times, there were precedents of humans who, to learn demonic magic, constantly consumed demon cores to demonify themselves. But since humans gained magical treasures, this dangerous method was eliminated. With her eyes shining with hope, the woman says the method is excellent, and that with her identity, she doesn't need to worry about demon cores, as she can have as many as she wants. However, she gets confused and asks what he meant by demonification. He mentioned. The doctor explains that as he continues to consume demon cores, her son's body and thought patterns will become more and more like those of the demon race, and that one day he will become a full member of the demon race, and he asks if she can accept that. Faced with this revelation, the woman is completely shocked, and after that, silence fills the entire room, and she looks down, stunned by it all. Meanwhile, our MC, who heard everything, already considers himself a goner. He is absolutely certain that his mother would never accept such a treatment plan. After all, her entire family, her teachers, and even her friends were eliminated by the demon race. Because of this, his mother became mentally unstable, and even if she sees him as an innocent child, she would have 10,000 reasons to simply abandon him. Moreover, the demon race is currently suffering defeat after defeat on the battlefield, and the original inhabitants of the conquered lands are now third-class citizens, wandering through human territory. In these lands, the demon race has almost no human rights, being treated like mere livestock. The boy wonders what human would go broke buying demon cores just to save what they consider a cat or a dog. He believes that even if his mother is a bit crazy, she is still young and beautiful and could simply have another child. The masked doctor, noticing her silence, gets nervous and tells her to forget everything he said. He continues, explaining that she is an important figure, and if her son becomes a demon, all of humanity will boycott her, and the government will strip her of all her status and honors. Furthermore, the doctor reminds her that when she fought Lin Potion, she used too much power, and most of it has not yet recovered. Because of this, without the support of the human government, it would be very difficult for her to survive. Faced with the silence, the doctor doctor thinks that presenting this plan was a mistake, but suddenly, Shirui's voice breaks the silence, saying it's great. Both the boy and the doctor are surprised as the villainess says that her son can still be saved, and she repeats saying that this is great. With that, she completely ignores the consequences and tells him not even to mention the demon race. A moment later, she hugs her son tightly and shouts that she doesn't care if he's a blade of grass or a flower on the roadside, because she will raise him anyway. Completely moved by his mother's attitude, our MC starts to cry while calling for her amidst his tears. Witnessing the scene, the doctor says he will write the prescription immediately, but it was impossible to keep such a big secret, and the news that Shirui's son was a demon spread like wildfire. From there, the news becomes a headline in all the newspapers, with titles like, "The son of human heroine Shirui is actually a demon." Soon after, conspiracy theories emerge, wondering if taking out Lin Potion wasn't a trick for a larger demon race conspiracy, and the public finds it hard to believe, saying that anyone could marry a demon, but not Shirui. Faced with the controversy, the demon-sealing king, Wang Feng, makes an official announcement, ordering Shirui to be stripped of all her honors and titles and demoted to a commoner, and that anyone who dares to help her will be treated as a spy. Meanwhile, our MC writes in his diary that high-quality demon cores are 1 in 100, and that just relying on hunting to obtain them is completely insufficient, but his illness cannot wait at all. With that, his mother, who was banned from all benefits and job opportunities, begins to sell the family's remaining properties in her laboratory, constantly spending astronomical prices to buy demon and nun cores on the black market. Because of this, the family's situation went from bad to worse, and his mother also becomes riddled with debt. 2 years pass and our MC's illness has improved a bit, but he looks cold and gaunt. His torn and patched clothes show that their life has not been easy at all. Mother and son walk hand in hand through the snow, and our MC realizes that now they have also lost their home. Dressed in rags and with nowhere to go, the two continue their journey, facing the cold and hunger together. Shivering from the cold, little Tian asks his mother if she can't summon flames anymore, as he is very cold, and she simply cannot answer. Our MC immediately regrets asking that question. He remembers that poison-type magical treasures usually work by depleting the user's future combat power, and his mother, who had already used an absurd amount of her future power to defeat Lin Potion, spent what little was left in battles to get demon cores for him. Because of this, she is now no different from an ordinary person and has no way to summon flames. Overwhelmed with guilt, the boy thinks that this is all his fault. At that moment, he looks through a window and sees a warm house with a lit fireplace, and thinks that the creator must hate this world. He believes the creator made natural disasters and diseases to torture living beings until they wish for the end. The two were cold and had nowhere to go, and the MC couldn't take this situation anymore. But suddenly, his mother breaks into a crazy smile and excitedly shouts her son's name. A moment later, she opens her arms and shouts, "Robot Fusion," while the boy thinks that maybe the creator also likes children. From there, she grabs him tightly, hugs him, and uses her own clothes to warm him with her own body. With a smile on her face, she asks if he's not cold anymore, and says that she is the strongest demon sealer of all and can do anything. With that, the boy thinks that the creator made her to endure all this and believes that just like the creator, his mother is also omnipotent. He then cries and says that she will be cold too. Night comes and his mother's voice calls him to wake up. A moment later, she shows him what she brought for him. With an excited smile, the woman says he must be starving and reveals that she got a roasted sweet potato. She explains that she visited several houses and that after much begging, a family finally gave them the sweet potato. The mother tells him to eat quickly, as they haven't eaten in days, but our MC asks if she has food too. With a smile, she replies that she does and breaks the sweet potato in half. The woman then tells him not to worry, as she still needs to take care of him, and would never let herself go hungry. With that, the boy begins to eat and says that it's warm and smells so good, but suddenly, a mysterious figure approaches their shelter in the middle of the snow. The figure reveals itself to be a little boy from the demon race, who says hello and comments that he smelled food. He then comes closer and begs them to share some food with him. Faced with the request, the woman stares at the boy and thinks with contempt that he is of the demon race. However, to everyone's surprise, she just replies yes, but with a completely insane look. She tells the boy to rip out his own demon core in exchange for the food. The little demon boy laughs, thinking it's a joke, and explains that he is actually the person in the world who most wants to dig out his own core, because if he had a core like a warrior's, he could take it to the black market to trade for food. That way, his sick sister and he wouldn't have to go hungry. Hearing this, the woman falls silent, completely surprised. The little demon then asks if she is of the demon race, and the woman tells him to open his eyes eyes and see for himself, but the boy explains that he can't because he was born that way. She thinks he is a pitiful monster. With that, the boy realizes she is human because only humans call them monsters, and so he apologizes and asks her not to hit him. The villainess is surprised and asks how people still hit him even in his state, and the boy confirms, saying that humans really hate them. He laments that he can't see, as he can't tell the races apart, and for him, begging depends on luck. Finding a demon might get him food, but finding a human means he'll get beaten. Shiaru then becomes thoughtful upon hearing this, and wonders if it's really that hard to survive in this world. Suddenly, the demon boy says that if he sniffs carefully, he can smell a trace of demonic aura and asks if she is actually of the demon race. The woman then falls silent for a moment and replies that she is human, but her baby is of the demon race. Faced with her own revelation, the villainess gets a look of pure sadness and empathy. From there, tears begin to stream from her eyes as she remembers her own journey of suffering. With a heavy heart, she then breaks her own half of the sweet potato in half, deciding to share her food. With a gesture of empathy, she offers the piece of food to the little demon boy and tells him to take it. The little demon is radiant with happiness and thanks her, saying that now he and his sister can live until tomorrow. As he walks away, he says goodbye and mentions that humans often say that good people receive good rewards, and he wishes her peace. The villainess becomes thoughtful at the phrase and remembers that her teacher used to say the same thing. With a lost look, she stares at the night sky and the snow that continues to fall. Completely alone in her makeshift shelter, she questions if she is really a good person, but suddenly our MC starts coughing up blood violently, interrupting her thoughts. The scene changes, and we see the desperate woman shouting at a vendor, asking how the money isn't enough. Holding her son's unconscious body, she complains that this time it wasn't even a high-level demon core. The merchant, with a look of contempt, says that he is the seller and therefore has the final say, and even mocks her, saying that even broke, she's still Xiaorui and should have some money. The man continues to taunt her from his doorway, saying the price only doubled, and asks if she isn't willing to pay that for her son. But the woman pleads that she really has no more money. In complete desperation, she shouts that she just needs 3 more demon cores to finally have a way to cure him. From there, she gets on her knees and begs, saying she'll owe him the extra amount and will definitely pay in the future, and that she's willing to do anything he wants. In a final, desperate plea, she asks him to do it in the name of the fact that she once saved all of humanity, and so she remains there, prostrated on the ground, begging for help, while the vendor just watches her coldly from the doorway. As he writes in his diary, our MC reveals that to this day, he doesn't know what method his mother used to convince that evil merchant to agree to her request. He continues writing that he doesn't know if the gods took pity, but since that night, his body began to improve significantly. With his health improving, the two can now stroll through a sunny park, even though they are still in tattered clothes. Their situation has improved so much that they can eat 5 colored flower demon meat, and the boy shouts excitedly at the meal. They also enjoy the little things in life, like a free swing at an amusement park. Our MC pushes his mother on the swing, and apparently, they kicked off the child who was there, but the fun ends with the villainess falling off the swing, and the boy asking to stop there. Over time, the demand for demon cores decreases a bit, and the family's financial situation begins to slowly improve, as his mother managed to get some jobs in the Black Swamp corner. With a hopeful smile, she says that in another half a year, she'll be able to rent a small laboratory, and even though it's the cheapest, it will help refine his medicine. Hearing this, our MC gets a sad look, as he always felt guilty that his mother sold her laboratory because of him. Completely emotional, the boy starts to cry and hugs her tightly. She is surprised and asks why he's crying since she's in a good mood today. That night, the woman opens a mysterious box and reveals a purple, crystalline demon core that leaks a strange energy. Our MC's eyes are fixed on the object, completely mesmerized by its glow, and his mother just watches him with a mysterious smile on her face. He then asks if that is one of Lin Potion's demon cores. With a smile, his mother confirms, reminding him that, as he knows, Lin Potion met his end at her hands. She continues, explaining that back then, his cores scattered across the world, and one of them landed nearby, so she secretly hid it. The woman states that Lin Potion's demonic power was immense, and that if he consumes that core, there's a great chance his illness will be completely cured. With that, she encourages him to take the core and consume it once and for all. However, our protagonist remains silent, completely lost in thought about the decision he has to make. Though hesitant, he reaches out, preparing to grab the core that glows intensely before him, but as soon as he holds the object, a breaking news report on the television interrupts everything. An anchorwoman announces that at that very moment, the last city of the demon race on the mainland has finally returned to human hands. She goes on to explain that the city is located on the highest peak of the continent, and that by reaching it, humans would gain a major advantage, because from there, their flying warships could finally reach the celestial dragon's head, where the floating cities were located. With a bizarre smile on her face, the anchorwoman addresses her fellow countrymen with a message of victory. A sound of impact echoes through the room, symbolizing the final blow against the demon race. Hearing the news, our protagonist understands that the chance to invade his people's last refuge has finally arrived. The broadcast then shows scenes from the battle, with human soldiers advancing and striking down the bodies of demons without any mercy. The human fury knows no bounds, and one of the soldiers lands a powerful punch right on a demon. Right after, the soldiers mount giant missiles and charge forward, screaming for the attack. With that, an entire fleet of warships approaches the floating cities, ready for the slaughter. One of the soldiers begins to climb a ladder to prepare for the imminent attack. From there, the human army starts bombarding the celestial dragon guardian that protects the cities. As a result, the floating cities are hit by a shower of explosions that destroys everything in its path. Far away, Lee Daji's son slams his fist on the table and yells furiously that many years have passed since the fall of his hero. He points to a map showing the territory of the great demon race, which is now in peril. He turns to the other nobles and complains that in all this time, no one with even half of Lin Potion's strength has appeared to fight. Suddenly, one of the nobles receives a message and reports that the humans have breached the city center, but the leader yells for them to hold their position at all costs. The scene takes us to the meeting room of the highest demonic authority, where one of them shouts that the interests of the 7 noble families cannot be harmed. Another pig-faced noble stands up and starts cursing, completely furious with the situation. And so, the second regent shouts, asking who was the scumbag that sold the information about Lin Potion's location back then. He points to everyone in the room and says he knows each of them very well and that only the top brass knew where the hero was. Faced with the accusation, the fourth regent gets nervous, saying no one could have imagined things would end up this way, and reminds them that back then, Lin Potion was their leader. He recalls that Lin Potion himself had said with confidence that he had younger brothers in the family with talent nearly equal to his own, and that in the future, they could match his combat power. The seventh regent then stands up and yells how could they have known the humans would be so cruel as to wipe out Lin Potion's entire family, stating that it doesn't matter who leaked the information, as that person only wanted to seize power for themselves. At this, the pig-faced guy points to the second regent and says that he's also a suspect because when Lin Potion passed, he was promoted and was laughing like a fool. The tiger-faced noble stands up furiously and curses Lin Potion, saying the old emperor didn't put him in power just for him to sleep in a coffin. He begs for them to bring the hero back because, even though he was detestable, he knew how to win battles. But the third, rooster-faced regent stands up and asks about the status of the demonic cores. He continues, explaining that Lin Potion scattered his cores across the world and suggests they send elite warriors to retrieve them. But the sixth regent calls him a brat for only now caring about politics. The sixth regent then explains that the humans know Lin Potion's strength much better than they do. Because of this, the scattered cores are either missing or have already been stolen by the powerful 12 stars of natural disaster. Therefore, he claims that finding one of the hero's cores is harder than defeating the army of 200,000 men waiting outside. Suddenly, the eldest princess appears in a hologram and asks if the nobles still haven't found a solution to the problem. One of the nobles grumbles that there is no solution and complains that they spent years seizing power from her father, and in the end, it all went wrong. The royal then says that if they don't have a plan, she has found someone who might be able to resolve the demon race's crisis. The tiger-faced noble gets angry and curses at her, saying her father has already lost all power and that her family has no chance of getting back to the top. He continues shouting, asking if, at a time like this, she's still trying to get her allies on the council. The seventh regent agrees and shouts that only Lin Potion can solve the situation, accusing the princess of not caring about the people, and saying her entire family should be wiped out. With a smile, the princess agrees with the nobles, saying that the person she mentioned does indeed have a connection to Lin Potion. The nobles are shocked, and the sixth regent asks if the boy's family wasn't completely eliminated, or if some distant relative still exists. The pig-faced guy then wonders if she's talking about the adopted son, Mukuo, but another noble reminds him that he's under military guard and can't see the princess at all. Suddenly, a loud noise echoes through the room, and all the nobles and the princess look in shock at the door that has suddenly swung open. At the entrance, a woman in elegant clothes appears, and everyone in the room falls silent, watching the newcomer. One of the nobles stares at her, wide-eyed, and says that he remembers her. The woman then walks slowly toward them with a serious expression on her face. He then remembers seeing her at a New Year's party alongside Lin Potion, where the two seemed very happy together. With that, he realizes that this is Dan Yun Duo, Lin Potion's fiancée, and shouts in shock that it's impossible, because she's supposed to be gone. The sixth regent turns to the princess and asks indignantly if this is the grand solution she had for their problem. One of the nobles nobles then says that the customs of the demon race are very conservative, but if she has already been with Lin Potion, he can consider her an experienced cultivator. The girl replies, asking how he knows they haven't been together, and the noble asks if that's a confirmation, but she denies it and tells him to get lost. The pig-faced guy, however, thinks it's a great idea, saying she's the #1 woman in the world, the ultimate war trophy, and that having her on their side would be a source of eternal pride. But suddenly, blades of golden energy slice through the air, destroying the meeting room table in the blink of an eye. The nobles panic and suggest handing the girl over to the human generals in exchange for special treatment, and everyone agrees with the idea. Dan Yundo, however, remains calm and silent, observing the nobles' cowardice. She then creates a thread of red energy in her hand, preparing to show her power. With a swift movement, the girl launches the energy thread, which multiplies and begins to attack everything around it. The red energy thread flies out the window and starts to spread throughout the entire city. The thread spread everywhere, creating a destructive web of energy that covers the entire area. With that, one of the city's buildings is completely destroyed by the energy blast. The web of red threads then advances toward the city walls and the attacking human soldiers. The soldiers scream in terror as they see the mysterious attack approaching at high speed, and with no chance to defend themselves, the red energy web hits the soldiers head on, causing a gigantic explosion. Back in the meeting room, Dan Yunduo retracts her energy threads and, with a defiant look, asks if they can talk for real now. The nobles are completely terrified by the display of power and back away, afraid of the girl. With everyone's attention, she reveals that Brother Tian left one of his demonic cores with her. The nobles are utterly shocked by the revelation, unable to believe what they've just heard. The eldest princess then smiles and says she expected this reaction from them. From there, the royal begins to remember a day in the past when she overheard people commenting that Lord Lin had rejected her because of his fiancé. At the time, she was quite surprised by his attitude. She reveals that she was very envious of the girl because she could be by Lord Lin's side all the time, and so she continues explaining that Dan Yunduo, the girl she envied so much, knelt before her and introduced herself formally. The royal reveals that the girl showed up with a plan right after her father, the emperor, was deposed. She continues her story, explaining that on the morning after the attack, the guards and city residents went to the site to rescue survivors. There, amidst the rubble, one of the men finds Dan Yunduo, still alive, and yells for help. As the survivors were being rescued, people commented that her family's survival rate was surprisingly high. One of the medics then looks up at the sky and sees a pillar of red light, theorizing that one of Lin Potion's demonic cores fell nearby and protected everyone. With her hands dirty and injured, the girl clutches a piece of cloth with a necklace, likely a gift from her beloved. With her face wounded and covered in bandages, she cries desperately while pressing the object against her chest. The princess explains that since Lin Potion's body was never found, Dan Yunduo became one of the few people who refused to believe he was gone. Completely alone amidst the destruction, she whispers her beloved's name with unwavering determination. With this hope in her heart, she went to her family and explained that, according to ancient books, a great demon had once escaped his demise by scattering his cores across the world. From there, she begged them to let her go on a journey to find her beloved's cores and bring him back. With tears in her eyes, she cries that she is his wife and that even if it's just his body, she has to find him. The royal then reveals that after that day, she didn't see Dan Yunduo for 4 years. She continues, explaining that she only heard from her father that the girl was traveling behind enemy lines, using the humans' information network to gather any news about Lord Lin. The princess recalls that Lin Potion's cores went to the places he cared about most, so it was natural that his fiancé would have one of them. However, she was worried because the stronger the core, the harder it was to refine, and even the greatest masters of the demon race would need immense effort to refine one of Lin Potion's cores, risking their own lives in the process. She remembers that when Dan Yunduo left, she was just an ordinary citizen with almost no combat power, but now the girl has transformed into a powerful and determined warrior. Faced with this transformation, the princess wonders what Dan Yunduo went through all these years to become so strong. Back in the present, the girl repeats that Brother Tian left one of his cores with her. The nobles are utterly shocked by the revelation, unable to believe what they've just heard. With a new attitude, the nobles invite her in and ask for a demonic power display sheet to be brought for her. Meanwhile, outside, a crowd gathers and one of them points upward, shouting that the council meeting is happening. We then see a large hall with several demon officials seated in their places. The people outside realize the meeting is being broadcast live and wonder why they're doing this at a time of crisis. The girl then shows a paper with an image of the meeting room, explaining the reason for the the live broadcast. She says that since the situation is urgent, her proposal must be executed immediately by the entire nation as soon as it's approved, which is why the ceremony needed to be a bit bigger. Furthermore, she explains that because of her work, her identity cannot be revealed to the humans, which is why she is dressed discreetly. Impatient, Lee Daji's son asks what her plan is to save the demon race and tells her to get on with it. Dan Yunduo then reveals her simple plan in 15 minutes to launch the celestial dragon continent at the human capital. The nobles are shocked to hear this, and she continues explaining that the 4 great demon cities and a massive amount of demonic power will strike the tectonic plate. With a cold gaze, she reveals that the entire demon race will be wiped out, but the human capital and the 3 surrounding provinces will have over 80% of their populations annihilated. The crowd watching the broadcast panics, and one of them yells that the woman in red is completely insane. Another demon curses for broadcasting such an absurd proposal, and the others yell at him to stop complaining and keep running. The officials in the room begin to whisper among themselves, completely shocked by the plan. Lee Daji's son then lights a cigarette with a thoughtful look. Meanwhile, the other nobles argue and trade accusations. One of them suddenly stands up and punches the table with all his might. He turns to the girl and starts cursing her, completely outraged by the idea. However, Lee Daji's son interrupts him and, with a cigarette in his mouth, says the proposal is excellent. He understands that her intention is to use the threat of mutual destruction to force the humans to retreat. The girl agrees, saying that despite them all being idiots, they still have a basic understanding of politics. The crowd outside gets excited, and one of them yells not to leave because they're talking about a peace treaty. Lee Daji's son, however, reveals that they have been trying to communicate with the celestial dragon guardian for years, but without success. He explains that even if they shout in its ear, the dragon simply ignores them and doesn't even give orders. The girl then reveals that this is why she is there. She explains that the dragon is a manifestation of her beloved's demonic core and that, in essence, it only obeys his demonic power. Therefore, theoretically, she, who possesses one of the cores, could control it, but even after years of arduous training, she can only control 30% of the core's power, and the people outside are impressed, saying that with such a powerful core, refining even a tenth would be an incredible feat. She continues, explaining that the celestial dragon guardian won't care about her meager 30% of power. Because of this, she needs the council to approve her proposal to gather the demonic power of the entire race and temporarily transfer it to her. With this, she believes her power will be sufficient to finally give orders to the celestial dragon guardian. She states that no government would accept the loss of 80% of the population in their main region, and so, she tells them to leave the control of the dragon to her, and that the only thing they need to do is have courage. The crowd outside, however, is not convinced, and one of them yells that it's all just her analysis, that there are rumors the humans only want revenge, and that she's gambling with the fate of the entire race. The girl agrees, admitting that she is gambling, and that she's only 70% certain. She then addresses the crowd, saying they have 2 options: either join her in a gamble with a 70% chance of victory, or be eliminated by the humans with 100% certainty. Faced with the ultimatum, the people fall silent for a moment, not knowing what to do. But suddenly, one of the demons raises his fist and shouts that he agrees to fight the humans to the very end. Inspired by this courage, the crowd begins to chant that they don't care about peace treaties and would rather fight to the end, since they're going to perish anyway. They continue shouting that they're tired of being oppressed by the humans, and even the soldiers on the front lines bow and say they will follow the orders of the counselor in red. With a war cry, the celestial dragon guardian prepares for the final battle, vowing to fight the humans with everything it has. The scene takes us to a distant village in the middle of the mountains. Back in the meeting room, an official with no voting rights shouts that he will fight the humans, but is reprimanded by one of the nobles. The official apologizes, embarrassed, and Lee Daji's son says the plan is interesting, that it's been over 10 years since Lin Potion's passing that he's heard such a bold proposal. With a determined look, he turns to the secretary and tells him to start the vote. The secretary agrees and prepares for the announcement. With the hourglass in hand, he bangs the gavel and announces the start of the vote. He then asks who is against the plan and asks them to raise their hands. The secretary begins to count the votes and is shocked by the result: 699-1. With a trembling hand, he bangs the gavel and announces that the proposal has been rejected. Dan Yunduo is completely incredulous at the outcome of the vote. The secretary repeats the result with a faltering voice, and the crowd outside also can't believe it. One of the demons yells that she doesn't understand why they rejected a plan with a 70% chance of success, and that she'd rather take the risk than wait for certain doom. The girl then addresses the nobles, saying that between 0 and 70%, they have no reason to refuse, and asks if her plan wasn't clear enough. Lee Daji's son replies that she was very clear, that the plan is excellent, and that she is a genius for having found a solution to prevent the extinction of the demon race in such a critical situation. However, with a look of contempt. He asks what the extinction of the demon race has to do with them. The counselors. He explains that the nobles can pay taxes and war reparations to any human province, and, with that, gain immunity for their families and even the status of honorary demons. He then addresses the crowd and says that they, the poor souls, have no value, not even as fertilizer for the humans. He continues, saying that their material conditions condemn them to be forever tied to the word demon. Because of this, they have no choice and think only of protecting, defending, and perishing for the demon race, but the nobles no longer even bother to pretend they care about the people. He concludes by saying that the poor love their nation, while the rich choose their nation, and that this is true all over the world. Dan Yunduo then asks why the nobles and the elite in that room would take a 30% risk of perishing for a bunch of poor souls. One of the officials agrees, shouting that 30% is a very high risk, like playing rock, paper, scissors with 3 people where the loser is done for. With a cold look, Lee Daji's son states that their mortality rate is, and always will be, 0%. He goes on to say that people like her, who have a little combat power, think they're incredible, and with a bit of strategy, they want to control the fate of the world. The other officials agree, complaining that they use the state machine to realize their ideals and ambitions, but it's the rich who pay the price of war, and that they barely got a rid of Lin potion. And now another crazy one shows up. The girl replies that trying to establish oneself in that room, with a good strategy and a passionate heart, is useless. The noble then calls her an idiot, just like her stubborn husband. He reveals that Lin Potion's demise was preordained from the moment he became too strong, and wanted to restore the glory of the demon race. With the other nobles by his side, he tells her not to hate them, because the one who took him out was the entire noble class of the demon race, and that even if they hadn't acted, the other nobles there would have gotten rid of him sooner or later. Taking pity on the poor widow, he decides to give her a piece of advice. He warns her that when she presents a plan in that room, she'd better think carefully, because, in a way, that room can be more terrifying than the human army. He then asks if she has any other plans. With that, he addresses the other nobles and tells them to accept reality and start getting their finances in order, as half of their assets will be handed over to the humans. With that, he ends the meeting, and the broadcast is cut, leaving the crowd in a panic. One of the demons shouts that the nobles can pay a fortune to survive, but what about the rest of the people? What are they going to do? And another wonders if it was the nobles who got rid of Lord Lin. Suddenly, a gigantic explosion rocks the city. The wall that protected the demons is completely destroyed by the human attack. The people panic and start running desperately, screaming that the wall has been blown up and that the humans are invading. With the wall in ruins, an army of human soldiers advances toward the city. The soldiers begin to attack the defenseless civilians with their energy weapons, and the slaughter begins, with the human soldiers attacking without mercy. The city becomes a true battlefield with explosions everywhere and demons screaming for help. Back in the meeting room, Dan Yunduo tells them to wait. One of the officials then says the meeting isn't over yet, as he has a new plan. With a determined look, the girl asks if they want to hear her new proposal. The officials are surprised and wonder what she's plotting. One of them yells for her to spit it out, hoping it's not another plan that will surely be rejected, and she tells him to relax. She continues, saying she didn't want it to come to this, as it's still too early to offend them, but one of the nobles interrupts her and tells her to stop stalling and start writing the surrender letter. She then presents her first proposal, that the demon government pardon her crimes of murder. The nobles mock her, and one of them asks if she committed murders in recent years and wants to clear her name, while another comments that it seems everyone who becomes a counselor wants to use power for personal gain. Her second proposal is that the entire demon race cooperate with her action to launch the celestial dragon continent at the human capital, at any cost. Lee Daji's son complains that nothing has changed and asks what she really wants. The third and final proposal is to confiscate half the assets of each counselor for the reconstruction of the demon race and as compensation for the human slaves. One of the nobles gets angry and yells that he's had enough. The other nobles stand up and shout that she's wasting time, that with one of Lin Potion's cores she thinks she's invincible, and they tell her to drop dead. The girl then says that these are her proposals, and that those who are against it should raise their hands. She faces the nobles with a defiant gaze, waiting for their reaction. After a brief silence, the girl looks to her sides, and with a dark smile, she announces that no one is against it. She then turns to the secretary and tells him to announce the voting result to all departments and to start taking action. With a piece of paper in her hand, she announces the result 0 to 700, and with a cold, determined look, she prepares for the next step. She declares the proposal has been approved unanimously, while the bodies of the nobles and officials who defied her are scattered across the floor of the meeting room. Lee Daji's son, who barely survived the attack, stares at her in complete shock. The girl compliments him, saying that, as expected of a great counselor, his demonic power is impressive for having survived the attack. She approaches him and reminds him that he said this room was more terrifying than the humans. With a cold smile, she agrees with him. His eyes wide with fear, he says that after all, the humans wouldn't take his life, and he begs for his own. However, the girl replies coldly that she will. He then begins to scream in pain as she squeezes him harder. Desperate, he yells her name and calls her a commoner who dares to challenge authority, boasting that he is the #1 noble of the demon race. He continues saying that even if she manages to control the dragon and save the demon race, if she gets rid of him, the entire noble class will turn against her, and that the law will punish her, society will condemn her, the media will call her a widow, the people won't help her, and everyone will hate her. As she continues to tighten her grip on his neck, the noble starts screaming in pain and begs for his life. He apologizes for calling her a commoner and pleads for forgiveness in the name of his old friendship with Lin Potion. He even offers for her to marry him as his 6th concubine. In his desperation, he corrects himself and says she will be the princess, the legitimate wife of the great counselor, and that she will become a noble, and he begs her to spare his life. The girl replies coldly that Brother Tian isn't gone, and that in the next life, he shouldn't call her a widow, and with a final squeeze, she ends his life. With a snap, the noble's neck breaks, and he finally stops struggling. Amidst the bodies of the nobles, she says she knows her beloved isn't gone, and with unwavering determination, she promises that when he returns, she will hand the demon race back to him, whole. She then shouts the name of the little celestial dragon with all her might. The celestial dragon guardian, which was in the sky, cries out upon hearing the call. In the year 3768, after adding an amendment that prohibited political assassinations, the demon race considered the meeting's result valid. They used public channels to threaten the humans with mutually assured destruction, but at first, the humans didn't take it seriously, thinking it was just a bluff. However, when the celestial dragon guardian touched the outskirts of the capital, they finally agreed to negotiate. With that, humans and demons reached a temporary peace, and the celestial dragon guardian flies peacefully through the skies. Back in the present, our protagonist is sweating and shaking as if he has a fever. His new mother hugs him, worried, and asks what's happening and why he's so hot. The scene then takes us to a series of flashbacks, showing the doctor saying he was a demon in his past life, and his mother hugging him and saying she would raise him even if he were a wild flower on the roadside. In March of 3771, in December of 3774, we see the boy hugging her while releasing a strange smoke, and with a thud, he places the demonic core his mother gave him on the table. Now, in January of 3775, our protagonist holds the core with a determined look, ready to finally cure his illness and recover his memories. His mother watches him with a smile and a look of pride. 8 years after the dragon's contact with the earth, she finally reveals Lin Potion's demonic core to her son. With a smile, she confirms that as he knows, Lin Potion met his end at her hands. She continues explaining that at the time, his cores scattered across the world, and one of them fell near where he passed, so she hid it. She admits that, being the most powerful core in thousands of years, it would be a shame not to use it for research. Our protagonist then asks why she didn't give it to him sooner, and she explains that the demonic power was too strong, and that his old body would have been consumed if he tried to absorb it. However, she states that now that he has already consumed a large number of cores, he certainly has the capacity to withstand its power, and that with the demonic power of that core, his illness would be cured quickly. Furthermore, she reveals that this was the core that was in Lin Potion's head and that a large part of his memories might be inside it. She continues, saying that in the case of his race's extermination in his past life, his memories could contain important clues, and that maybe he'll even remember who his enemies were, and so, she encourages him to consume the core once and for all. Our protagonist, however, remains silent, completely lost in thought about the decision he has to make. Though hesitant, he reaches out, preparing to grab the core that glows intensely before him, but as soon as he holds the object, a breaking news report on the television interrupts everything. An anchorwoman announces that at that very moment, the last city of the demon race on the mainland has surrendered again. She addresses her fellow countrymen with a message of victory, while our protagonist understands that the chance to invade his people's last refuge has finally arrived. His mother, however, turns off the television, complaining that it was too loud. The room falls completely silent as mother and son stare at each other. She then tells him to go on and eat, and he stares at the core with a determined look. Without hesitation, the boy brings the core to his mouth and consumes it once and for all. He feels the core's power spread through his body as his mother watches him in silence. She then asks if he's feeling better, and if he remembers anything from his past life. Our protagonist's eyes go wide as memories begin to surface, and his mother watches him with a shocked expression. With a hand on his head, he tries to process the information that's returning. He scratches his head in confusion and says it seems he doesn't remember anything. His mother is surprised, and the boy wonders if his childhood fevers fried his brain. She wonders if Lin Potion put his memories in another core, and admits that some demons do that. The boy complains that if she knew that, she could have sold the core earlier so they wouldn't have had to suffer so much, but she scolds him, saying she was saving it to cure him and that no one would dare collect Lin Potion's cores. And he says he was just kidding. His mother says she needs to go out to take care of some things, but that she made him some sugar water with hawthorn, which he likes, and our protagonist thanks her. She advises him to rest early, as consuming a high-level core uses a lot of energy, and leaves the room as the boy agrees. The door closes with a thud, and our hero is left completely alone in the silence of the room. Alone, he sits at his desk and writes in his journal that in December of 774, he consumed Lin Potion's core. Then, the boy picks up the jar with the drink his mother left for him. At that moment, a happy memory from his new life flashes in his mind, and he sees himself lying in the grass next to his mother. However, this happy memory is quickly replaced by the terrifying image of his past life father's face being tortured. Soon after, he recalls a quiet moment from his childhood, drawing on the floor while his mother worked in her lab. From there, the memories of his past life come rushing back with full force, and he sees his parents in danger, his fiancée, and all the enemies who betrayed him. The two lives begin to mix in his head, and he sees his mother holding him as a baby while memories of his fiancée and his companions also appear. Faced with so many recollections, the most painful of all resurfaces, and he sees Xia Ri standing over his defeated body, asking for his last wishes. All alone, he starts writing in his diary, noting that in December of 3774, he absorbed Lin Potion's demonic core, but the anger from remembering everything is so intense that he smashes the glass jar on his desk with all his might. With a shard of glass in his hand and his face bathed in hateful tears, he finally confirms that his true enemy is the woman who raised him, Xia Ru. However, the mix of emotions and the core's power overwhelm him, and he starts coughing up blood violently. The coughing is so intense it echoes throughout the room as he writhes in pain. Blood stains his diary as his body's reaction gets worse by the second. Because of this, he collapses to the floor, clutching his stomach, unable to bear the agony. He realizes that by remembering everything, his human body is rejecting the demonic power from his past life even more forcefully. And with his body at its limit, our protagonist finally passes out on the cold floor of his room. At that exact moment, the door opens, and his mother comes in, calling out to him, worried when she sees him on the ground and covered in blood. Rushing to his side, the villainess panics, not understanding why the illness is still there even after he absorbed the core. As she wonders what went wrong, her eyes drift to the desk, and she spots the blood-stained diary. The woman stares at the object for a moment, realizing that something very serious happened here. Driven by curiosity and concern, she reaches out and picks up the diary to find out the truth. Upon opening it and reading the words written by her son, Xia Rui is completely frozen in shock, for she has finally discovered his greatest secret. Flipping through the diary, she finds an entry from January 12, 3775, where the boy mentions he grew half an inch, and that his treatment is in its final phase, needing to get strong so he won't have to hide behind her forever. And turning the page, she finally reaches the torn section, where the shocking truth was revealed. A day later, we see her lying in bed with her eyes wide open, completely in shock, while our protagonist sleeps peacefully beside her. Soon after, our hero also opens his eyes, preparing for the day ahead. He then glances to the side and, noticing his mother hasn't moved, concludes she must still be fast asleep. From there, our protagonist reflects that his recent injuries have already healed, and that he'll be fine as long as he doesn't let his emotions get out of control again. And with a cold, determined look, he gets out of bed, holding a rope, because he can't wait another day to finally get his revenge. He isn't worried about her open eyes, however, as he knows sleeping like that is a habit Shirai had for over 10 years, and the wider her eyes are open, the deeper she's sleeping. Besides, the boy knows that in his current state, he doesn't stand a chance of beating her in a direct fight, so he can only count on a sneak attack. And so, with a silent scream of rage, he pulls the rope with all his strength, ready to put an end to her once and for all. However, to his surprise, the rope stops midway, as if it hit an invisible barrier. It's in that moment he notices a glowing protection talisman on his mother's chest, an item written with a yin-yang brush. Our protagonist instantly understands that the object can nullify a certain amount of external force, even when the user is unconscious. With his plan ruined, he remembers that tensions between humans and demons have been rising quite a bit lately. Because of this, he concludes that with the world in such a chaotic state, it's completely normal for her to always be on guard to protect herself from any danger. And so, he turns away, deciding he'll have to find another chance to get his revenge. From there, he lies back down, pretending nothing happened, and the room once again sinks into a tense silence. Our protagonist closes his eyes and pretends to sleep, but inside, the rage and desire for vengeance continue to burn. But he doesn't realize that on the other side of the bed, his mother is also awake, and with the shocking revelation she discovered in the diary, silent tears begin to stream down Xiao Rui's face. Meanwhile, the world outside keeps spinning, and the newspapers announce bombshell news, like the leader of the Light Province expanding recruitment to attack the Celestial Dragon continent. On a bustling street, a paperboy shouts that another war is coming as he sells the latest news to the public. Life, however, goes on, and in a crowded restaurant, a man excitedly yells that the place is booming. Inside, a group of friends playfully argues over the flower demon meat, while one of them brags about having paid more. One of the guys then grabs a sauce and pours it over the meat, saying that's the right way to use it. Right after, he grabs a huge piece of meat and devours it in one go, and his friend jokes that he handles spicy food so well, he's like a demon in disguise. At the next table, we see our protagonist pot bubbling with a white broth on one side and a spicy red one on the other. With a serious look, he declares that, as always, the white broth is his. Hearing his declaration, his mother picks up a ladle and starts serving food from the red broth, and with a smile, she says the spicy red broth is for little Tian, while the boy stares at her with a cold, distant expression. His mother remarks that her little Tian isn't like other people, as he's loved spicy food since he was a little kid. Suddenly, the restaurant owner appears, all happy, and recognizes them as regular customers, talking about a promotion to eat for free. The villainess takes the opportunity to tell the lady that they might be moving to another province soon. The owner is surprised by the news and asks if it's because of the boy's studies, since his grades have always been great. Our protagonist then thinks that there are several reasons for the move, but one of the most important is that the Light Province might actually go to war with the demon race this time. The lady is confused, as she remembers they signed a peace treaty with the demons years ago. The villainess explains that the leader of the Light Province, Qin Ming, one of the 12 natural disaster stars, has been expanding the army to finish off the demons once and for all. She continues, saying that a new spiritual or vein was discovered this year, causing the province's combat power to skyrocket, and that next month, the Celestial Dragon continent will pass right over the Light Province. Because of this, she advises the restaurant owner to get out of there as soon as possible. 2. The lady, however, refuses to leave, saying that rumors about a second war between humans and demons have popped up more than 20 times in 7 years. She says she can't just move every time one of these rumors surfaces, but the villainess replies that the decision is hers, and that her gut feeling tells her there's a 60 to 70% chance the war will actually happen. Changing the subject, the villainess says she's interested in the membership card the lady mentioned, but the owner refuses to sell it, since it would be a waste of money if they're leaving. With a melancholic smile, the villainess says she still remembers when they first came there for little Tian's birthday. Back then, she was the only person on the whole street who didn't complain about their dirty, torn clothes and served them anyway. She goes on, recalling that even the food on their table was double the size of others, and that even without the lady saying anything, she could feel her kindness. And so, she says her memory comes and goes, and if she keeps the card in her purse, she won't forget her. Faced with the owner's refusal, the villainess threatens to report her for false advertising, and the lady ends up accepting the money, left with no other choice. With that, the restaurant owner goes back to work, leaving them alone at the table again. Our protagonist then thinks that Xiao Rui hit the nail on the head, and that even with her unstable mind, her instincts about the war are still razor sharp. From there, he ironically wonders if he should praise her for being worthy of taking him out in his past life. Because of this, he decides he needs to speed up his plans, as the demon officials are useless, and he needs to get back to his people's territory soon. However, before he can do any of that, he stares at his mother with his eyes glowing red and vows to himself that first, he needs to end her. Right after, he calls her Mom and says he thinks he's old enough to learn a few things, and so he asks her to teach him how to use magical artifacts, remembering the talisman that stopped him from getting his revenge. And with a look of pure determination, he finishes his request, saying he also wants to learn how to break those same artifacts. Hearing the request, the woman is completely silent for a moment, processing her son's words. After a short pause, she simply replies, "All right," and agrees to his request. From there, the two continue their meal in a heavy silence, as the mood at the table has completely changed after that conversation. With a smile on her face, she says she'll start teaching him tomorrow. The scene then takes us to the Light Province, where a cute mascot welcomes everyone. Inside, we see a man holding a golden magic mirror that shines brightly. He's in the Palace of the Prism of Light, the province's administrative center, and before him, several soldiers and officials await orders. This is Qin Ming, one of the 12 natural disaster stars, and with an ice cream cone in his hand, he asks about the current situation while keeping a demon girl on a leash like a pet. In response to the question, one of his officials begins the report explaining that the province discovered a new spiritual or vein and that its combat power has reached unprecedented levels, while the demon race is at rock bottom. He continues, saying that in previous years, the woman in red who could control the celestial dragon continent saved all the demons and won their hearts. And so, Juki, the first general of the Light Province, explains that with the peaceful times, the reputation of the woman in red has slowly faded among the people. Because of this, attitudes like there will be no more war between humans and demons, and living on the celestial dragon continent is great, have multiplied exponentially. With that, the number of demons enlisting in the army has plummeted, and the quality of the soldiers is much worse than before. Given all these facts, military experts and spies have reached a unanimous conclusion: the combat strength of the demon race is at its weakest point in the last 5 years. Hearing this, the province's third general, known as the White Tiger, questions why they don't just wait a few more years to attack when the demons are even more decadent. He is the third general of the Light Province, the White Tiger. Suddenly, a young man with red hair approaches and asks what his uncle is thinking. This is Erbao, Kunming's second son, and he explains that it's not just the demon race that has grown complacent with peace. In recent years, more and more humans have also become content with the current situation. With a smile, he says that the shadow of nearly being annihilated by the demons over 10 years ago is becoming more and more distant for humanity. He reveals that even their province, which harbors the deepest hatred for demons, the proportion of military and civilians who want the demon race gone has dropped from 99% to 78%, and in other provinces the situation is even worse. Hearing the report, the leader asks if his father and king wants to start a war, because relying only on the warmongers present won't be enough. He continues explaining that just as they did with Lin Potion over 10 years ago, the best course of action is to unite the military forces of all human provinces. With a determined look, the young man repeats that they must unite all human military forces to ensure victory. Kunming then says that at the very least, they must consolidate all the forces of their own province, as people are gradually being deceived by the demons' pleas for mercy, and if they don't eradicate them at the root, there's a risk of a second Lin Potion emerging. One of his hooded officials agrees, saying that humans living in comfort need a blazing fire to reawaken their hatred for the demons. With a cold gaze, Kunming declares that he himself will light that fire, and so, he turns to his son and orders him to handle the military preparations. With the order given, the leader announces to everyone in the room that he will personally take care of uniting humanity, and they all shout in agreement. At that moment, the demon girl who was leashed shrinks back in fear, knowing that something terrible is about to happen. Kunming then looks at her and with a cruel smile asks his queen mother if his butt is soft. Completely terrified and in agony, the girl is forced to scream that his butt is the softest of all and that she feels great, all while begging for her life. Ignoring her cries, the leader unleashes his 1,000-pound phantom light drop technique, and a devastating blow strikes the girl, making her scream in pain. From a distance, his son Erbao calls him Queen Mother, completely indifferent to the scene of torture he just witnessed. Faced with the scene, the other officials show no reaction, merely observing with bored expressions. From there, the leader of the Light Province stands over the body of the demon girl he just eliminated. The scene then takes us to a grave with a sign that reads, Tom of Kun Bao Bao. With a look of pure sadness, Kunming begins to talk about his oldest and most precious son, Kun Bao Bao. He reveals that 5 years ago, his son, who was only 17, was beaten to his end by more than a dozen demon slaves just for taking out a country demon girl. And so, he clutches the chain tightly and says that his extermination of the demon race isn't just about the hatred between their peoples. With tears in his eyes, he screams that it's also revenge for his son who was taken from him. Juki then becomes enraged, saying that the cowardly human emperor wanted to keep the peace and agreed to the demons' demands, not even allowing them to have a proper funeral for the young master. Completely consumed by pain and rage, the leader screams his son's name in a lament of pure agony. Juke reveals that after his son passed, the grieving father and king crowns a demon as queen every day, and then executes her as a funeral sacrifice for him. Because of this, the girl we just saw being tortured was just one more in a long list of victims of this bizarre ritual. With an empty gaze, the leader reveals that including today's, there have been exactly 1,800 queens sacrificed. However, he yells that even after so many sacrifices, it's still not enough to soothe his pain. He then looks up at the sky and, with a look of pure determination, says that in 1 month, there's still the entire celestial dragon continent for him to use in his revenge. Back at the restaurant, our protagonist tells his mother she should teach him how to use magical artifacts now. And with a look of pure rage, he adds that he also wants to learn how to break the artifacts. The villainess simply replies, "All right," and agrees to his request. She then says she'll start teaching him tomorrow. True to her word, the next next day, the boy is already training, and with a hand sign, he shouts to release his power. With that, a small jar opens and releases a purple smoke that spreads across the area. Our protagonist wonders if he inherited Xiao Rui's genius genes or if the methods for controlling demonic and spiritual power are very similar, because he learns everything incredibly fast, using a poor hamster as a guinea pig. The purple smoke hits the little rodent head-on, catching it completely by surprise. Because of this, the little critter faints and lies there on its back, completely knocked out. With a smile on his face, our hero celebrates that his spell finally worked. Right after, he tests the release spell and touches his hand to the jar to undo the magic. With the spell undone, the hamster jumps back up as if nothing happened. In this way, he quickly mastered the basic methods for controlling magical artifacts and simple techniques for breaking their spells. From there, using the methods his mother taught him, he starts practicing on her protection talisman while she sleeps and notices that the object has indeed started to loosen. Over time, the magical barrier protecting the villainess gradually weakens, leaving her more and more vulnerable. And so, our protagonist thinks that thankfully, defense talismans aren't Shiru's specialty, and if he keeps practicing for another couple of weeks, he'll definitely be able to break the barrier completely. From there, he turns to his side and vows to himself that after the barrier falls, she'll finally be done for.